we'd never been outside the country at all. Didn't even have a passport. Packed everything up, packed the family up. We had one kid at the time. Moved to Japan. I looked at all my classmates and some of my close friends from PT school, and they were all burnt out too. I mean, a handful of them were talking about like, I don't want to be a physical therapist anymore. What? Like, we just got our doctorates and like, this sucks. Like, why is this? Why is it this?
At graduation, throwing your cap, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah, it's like, what? I just spent 150 grand on that, and like, dang.
What's going on, everybody? My name is Ryan Snaadt. It rhymes with odd, and welcome to the Rhymes with Odd podcast. Today we're joined with Bryan Ladd, owner of Kaizen Health and Performance.
Health and wellness.
Health and wellness. Dang it! I almost got the
You
intro.
got the Kaizen right, though.
Yes. Yes.
Usually that's the part people butcher. So
absolutely. Well, welcome to the podcast, man.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
So, in your defense, like if I could go back, I would probably, it wouldn't be Kaizen Health and Wellness. It would probably be Kaizen Performance or Performance Therapy, or so. It would be something else. But
sure.
I don't want to rebrand.
Sure. At this point, you might as well change your last name to Kaizen, because
there we go.
then people could find you. So Bryan and I know each other. We met previously. We've kind of been in the same spheres of the world, because you're obviously in the health performance sports world.
Sure.
I shoot a lot of health sports performance videos, so I'm kind of all in. I'm also very into that stuff in my personal life too. So we've kind of crossed paths a couple different times. So I'm excited to have you on the pod and talk a little bit about business and all the stuff that's going on with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So for people that don't know who you are, can you explain like who you are and what you do?
Yeah. So like you said, my name is Bryan Ladd. I'm the owner of Kaizen Health and Wellness. We're a performance physical therapy practice, and we help active adults and athletes get back to doing the things that they love to do. So that's in simple terms.
I love it. And you're father of four, it sounds like.
Yeah,
newborn?
We've got 4 little ones. We've got an 8-year-old, 5-year-old, 3-year-old, and a newborn. So we've got three boys and a girl.
Sure. So. Business and a bunch of kids. How crazy is that too?
Our heads are spinning constantly. So
that's awesome. And then does your wife work in the business? Does she do something else? What does she do?
She does. She's a nurse by background. What year was it? She worked up until 21, I believe. And that's when the business got busy enough, I would say, to where I was like, hey, I need help. And so I either need to hire someone or you need to quit your job. And so I was pretty partial to her quitting her job.
Jobs are overrated.
Yeah, like we can find money anywhere. It's fine. We can pay those bills somehow. But I mean, I think she saw how much freedom I had and flexibility with my schedule, and kind of go do what I want to do when I want to do it, or if I need to go to an appointment or something else, I could do it. And whereas she was sitting at work, like twiddling her thumbs, and had to ask someone to take an hour off. And so I kind of prodded that along and eventually got her to realize, like, yeah, I should quit my job. So it was pretty scary. I feel you probably realize this too with like business. There's different points you get to where it's like that jumping point. It's like you just got to jump, and it's scary, but you just got to do it. And then once you do it, like you look back and you're like, oh, I should have done that 6 months ago.
Sure.
But
they would say it's like the skydiving effect, where it's like everything your body is saying, don't jump out of that plane.
Yeah.
And the second you're free falling, it's like complete euphoria.
Yeah,
but I will say a lot of times in business, sometimes it feels like you're just spinning out of control, flying out of the plane. You're like, where's that shit I need to pull?
Right.
I'm like, I'm freaking out. So,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I think it's interesting too, because I like, to your point, I had that same thing with myself, but it was also like what's the worst that could happen, And I think that's a thing that helps a lot of people, is like, if this completely flops, I can always go get another job.
Right.
Yeah, you could always go be a PT somewhere else. She could always go back and get her job back. Like, maybe not that specific one, but something similar.
Right, yeah. I mean, there's plenty of nursing jobs. Like, she could go do that. So
absolutely.
Yeah, now she's super busy, though. She probably works way more now than she did before. I mean, she helps us out on the back end with all of her administrative stuff, billing, insurance, things like that. And she homeschools our kids on top of that.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, 4 kids in general, that's just a lot going on all the time.
Sure. Well, I was going to ask that too, because it's like 4 kids in daycare, or, well, I guess some of yours are school age, but it's like that's a overwhelming thing to even think about.
Yeah.
Costs of everything.
Ridiculously expensive. And so it was COVID that brought daycare to an end. COVID hit and our daycare closed down. And so
Like for good, or they just were?
They shut down temporarily. They're still open now.
Okay.
But they shut down temporarily, so we couldn't take them there, and so we kind of had to figure it out. And they were trying to bill us for the time we weren't there, and we're like, well, that's not right. And so we just pulled them. We're like, we'll figure it out.
Sure.
And they never went back.
Sure. That's awesome. I think it's cool too. And I guess we should probably jump in a little bit about your background, but
Sure.
Your path that you gotten to get here, I think, is unique because it's literally taking you around the world. So tell me a little bit about
definitely.
when, let's start like high school, like when you decided to join the military and what your career looked like when you kind of left high school.
Sure. So I'm from Nebraska originally, Aurora, Nebraska specifically. And went to undergrad at Hastings College, just about 40 minutes away, South Central Nebraska.
Are they D3 or D2 or?
It's NAIA, so D3 size.
Sure.
Played football there, and I had always wanted to be. I was always active in sports in high school. Played every sport, and I wanted to be a strength coach. And so that. Yeah, I don't know. That's for the longest time. That's always what I wanted to do. So going to college, like exercise science major, and it's like I'm gonna be a strength coach. Met my now wife, and she was in nursing school, and she's like, I think you should be a PT. And
good idea.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know. Like, so in my hometown, the hometown of 4,000 people at the time, there was one physical therapist, and that was it. And so when she said that, I was like, he had a pretty cool job. Like, it looked pretty chill. I could do that. And so I started shadowing places, and I was like, yeah, I kind of like it. There's jobs everywhere. You know, I can always, like you said, I can always find something, and it pays decent. I'm like, sure. So long story short, went to PT school at Des Moines University here. And
did you do is it 6-year program, 7-year?
So it's a doctorate program. So 4 years undergrad, 3 years grad school.
Okay.
It culminates in a doctorate.
Which isn't, I mean, you think about like medical school, that's not terrible. Like I know my wife's cousin is a dentist, and he like just finished, and he's like 30. I'm like, you're not even like, I mean, you're a doctor, yes, right. But it's like, come on, man, like this is, you just gave up like 30 years of your life. Crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah. And so we don't have, I mean, they have residencies and whatnot for physical therapists. They're not required. So you can graduate and go practice right away.
Sure. Because are you technically a doctor then?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you can.
Doctor of physical therapy.
Okay. Very
DPT.
cool.
So.
Sure. Okay. Cool.
So yep. So I graduated 2014 from DMU, and then got a commission in the Navy, and that, like you said, that took me all over the world. So I should say I got a commission as a physical therapist. So I was a physical therapist in the Navy. Went to the first. Well, let's follow the path, I guess. So took us to Rhode Island. That was officer development school, and then flew back to Iowa. We drove out to Washington State, where I was first stationed at Naval Hospital Bremerton. Okay. We were there. Those 3-year orders, but I was there for 2, and took what's called a hot fill. So they had an urgent need for someone in Okinawa, Japan. So I didn't even know where Okinawa was. Had never heard of it. So they're like, Google it. So that's what I did. And you look, first thing that pops up when you Google it is these beautiful turquoise beaches, and I'm like, I was in gloomy, I was in Bremerton, which is right across the Puget Sound from Seattle, and so it's the same, just gloomy weather all the time, just drizzles on you, and just it wears on you. Sure, or at least it did for me.
It'd be hard not to have seasonal depression all the time.
Oh yeah,
I got to go to work again.
Yeah, one of my mentors there was like, "Oh, you got to get a happy lamp," and I was like, "What is that?" And so, a little vitamin D lamp, she had it on her desk, and that's just.
You imagine just living somewhere where you have to artificially feel happiness.
I know, what? Yeah, no. Summers there were great. It was beautiful, mountains, ocean, everything. But I was just like, I got to get out of here. So opportunity came, and we took it. We'd never been outside the country at all. Didn't even have a passport. So packed everything up, packed the family up. We had 1 kid at the time, but moved to Japan. So we were there for 3 years, and I should backtrack a little bit. At Bremerton, I started out as a staff physical therapist. 6 months into the job, I showed up, and they're like, "You're interviewing for the department head job today."
Wow.
And I was like, "You're crazy. I don't want the job." I just became a physical therapist, just became a naval officer. I barely know where my office is. I don't know what I'm doing. Who's going to trust me to run a department? And so they made me interview, and one of my colleagues that I was interviewing against, she had been in the Navy like 2 months longer than me, but she had been a civilian occupational therapist for 8 years prior. And so I was like, she's clearly the correct choice here. And so she got the job. But the funny part is I was the assistant department head then, and I oversaw physical therapy and chiropractor. She oversaw OT. It was her and a OT tech. So we only had one chiropractor, but we had, I think, 7 other therapists. And then I don't know how many, there's probably 20 of us total, like that I oversaw. So it was like, I ended up like doing the job anyways.
That's wild though. So you were in charge of like the whole base then? How many like?
Just our department.
Sure.
So there was probably 25 of us, I think, 25. Yeah. I'd say about 25 of us that were under me. And then like she technically oversaw all of us, but like I managed physical therapy and chiro, which was the bulk of it.
Sure.
So anyways, fast forward to Okinawa. I was like, this is going to be sweet. Like I'm going to be a staff PT again. Just going to live it up on the beach. Like, this is going to be great. And parts of it were. But I got there and turned out the department head was leaving. He's transferring out. And
oh no, another accidental promotion.
Yeah, exactly.
Seeing a trend here.
So yeah, the guy coming in, there was someone that outranked us that was coming in. Like generally he would get the job. And he phoned ahead and was like, hey, I don't want the job. I'm retiring soon. I don't want it. And so
can't catch a break.
I'm like looking at all the other lieutenants around here. I'm like, well, you guys have been here. Like, I don't want to come in and like step on your toes. And they kind of did the nose goes thing. They're like, nope, like that's all yours. Like, and you know, at the time it was like, okay, this, like, I thought it was going to be a career thing. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, yeah, this is what I need for my career progression. And so I was like, let's do this.
Sure.
So I was the department head and staff PT for 3 years. I got a lot of beach time in there as well, but
did you learn Japanese then, or what's the language of origin there?
Yeah, it's Japanese.
Okay.
Okinawa is culturally, they're a little bit separate from Japan. Like it is a Japanese island now, but Okinawans want to be Okinawans. Like they don't necessarily want to be Japanese, or like the Chinese would love to take control of Okinawa too. But yeah, it gets kind of political. But
sure.
Yeah, it's all Japanese here.
So are you bilingual still, or did you not learn as much?
I didn't really have to learn the language, especially right around. We own a lot of real estate in Japan. Most people don't realize that, but
cool.
Right around the bases.
International real estate investor.
I mean, not me personally. I mean, the U.S.
Oh, the U.S. Okay.
The government owns a lot of land over there. So then right around all the bases, like everyone speaks, or pretty much everyone speaks some English.
Right.
Like a lot of the restaurants or stores you go to will have like, they'll have the Japanese side of the menu and they'll have an English side. And so I didn't really have to learn.
Sure. I think that's kind of like southern states in America. Like if you go to Texas, like most people are at least tolerable or bilingual. Like there's resources for it. Or you go to, any other country that there's like a close barrier or, border. So.
Sure. Yeah. So all of the gates, where you go on to base, all the security guards, they had some active duty security, but they had a lot of Japanese contractors. And so like you'd learn some like greetings, like good morning, good evening, hello, goodbye, like things like that.
Yeah.
That's pretty much the extent of it.
That's cool. Cool. So you finished in Japan. Did you get commissioned to a new base, or what brought you back to the States?
So I would have. So once you're commissioned, it's a little bit different than being enlisted. Like enlisted, you have to like re-enlist every so often. Like once you're commissioned for life until you resign it. And so I would have done my 3 years there and then got another assignment somewhere else. But I was burnt out by that point. And I kind of had felt that a little bit in Washington, but I was like, I don't want to base the Navy off of one place. Like, let's go somewhere else. And initially, Okinawa was significantly better as far as like work culture and my supervisors and everything. And then once some people left, like everything went back to old Navy. Mm-hmm. And so it was like, you just can't change it. Like some of that is so ingrained. And they always say like the Navy's a big ship and it turns slowly. And it's super true.
Sure.
So I got burnt out from that. And I was just like, I can't do 20 more years of this. Like I'm 5 years in and like it's not worth it.
Right.
Not worth the free health insurance at the end of it.
Right. Once you get to the 20-year mark, is that like the retirement age for most people that are in the military? You'll get like full pension or something like that.
Yep. You get, gosh, I'm going to butcher it now. I think it's like 50% of your salary, whatever that rank is, at 20 years. And I think if you say 30, it's 75, something around there.
Oh, sure. So they would still like pay you a percentage of your salary into perpetuity until you die. Then they probably stop paying. I would hope. They're like, you're at your cemetery, like, here you go. Good on you.
So I just like, man, I'm going to stroke out before that. So this, the stress and everything is just not worth it. So I was like, we got to look into something else. And the crazy thing though is like, I looked at all my classmates and some of my close friends from PT school, and they were all burnt out too. And they were all on the civilian side of it. And like, I mean, a handful of them were talking about like, I don't want to be a physical therapist anymore. And it's like, what? Like, we just got our doctorates and like, this sucks. Like, why is this? Why is it this?
At graduation, throwing your cap, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah, it's like, what? I just spent 150 grand on that, and like, dang.
Sure.
And so I was looking at all them, and I was like, man, I can't do that. Like, I can't. They were mostly like outpatient physical therapists. I'm like, I can't do that. Like, I'm already burnt out, and they're burnt out. So like, why would I do that? So I was like, well, I don't really want to go to a nursing home. I don't want to go to home health. Like, I don't want to go to other people's houses. Like, I've heard horror stories from that. And I was like, I guess I could work in a hospital. Like, I kind of enjoyed that rotation, but I'm like, I don't really want to, but I could manage. And so the more I got to thinking about it, I was just like, I just don't want to do that. I don't know. And so I'd never thought, I don't have anyone in my family that owns a business. We had like one project in school where we had to like budget for a business, but I didn't want to own a business then. I would have laughed at you if you'd have asked. Like, if you would have told me then, like I'd own a business in a couple of years, like I would have laughed. I just didn't want to do it. And so it never really was on my radar. But the more I looked into things, it was like, everyone else is burnt out. I'm burnt out. I don't want to do that, what they're doing. Like, there's got to be a better way. And so I just kind of started Googling one night. I remember sitting on our couch just up late. Like, I was like, there's got to be something different. And at the time, I was like, I'd heard something about like cash-based PT. I'm like, I don't really know what that's all about, but like, people tell me insurance is bad and like they're burnt out from insurance. And so I was like, I'll look into that. And so I started Googling it and found some podcasts and started binging podcasts on cash-based physical therapy. And like,
and what is that? That's just
so it just means like you don't directly take insurance.
Okay.
So they pay you cash, and then usually what we do is provide what's called a super bill. It's just an invoice with all the codes and everything that insurance needs. So the patient then takes that and then turns it in for hopefully they get reimbursement.
Sure.
Or some form of reimbursement.
Sure. So it's the onus is on the patient to kind of get their money back.
The idea is like I'm working for you, or as in like therapist is working for the patient versus like no third party saying we can do this or we can't do this or whatnot.
Sure. Because that would be the rub. Because I mean, I've been to PT a couple times. My wife has as well. Like, you just hope that your insurance takes it before you go and try to research it so you don't show up and they're like, well, for this console, it's like, $200 and it's not covered.
Well, because you get that where it's like, well, like, we take your insurance, but you've got a $5,000 deductible, so you're gonna have to pay out of pocket until that. And then it's like, oh, also there's an out of pocket max, and sometimes that's different than deductible, and so it becomes a whole game. I will say caveat before we get too far into it. We take insurance now.
Okay, sure.
So we can talk, I was going to say, we can talk about that now because we've gone we've had a lot of growth over the last we've been in business almost 4 years now. We've had a lot of different growth, and there's a reason we take insurance now versus just all cash. But to jump back into the story, so I started binging. For like probably 2 years, I listened to this one guy's podcast. I think I talked to him once on the phone. And then fast forward a little bit, getting out of the Navy, I was out processing in Washington, hopped on a phone call with him again, and he had a mastermind at this point. And I think there was a military discount. I think he charged like $1,200 a month or something at the time. And there's a military discount, so it was $1,000. And so I was like, geez, like that's a stupid amount of money. And so, but I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know how to run a business. And so I was like, let's, jumping point, let's do it. Like, whatever. Like, we'll figure it out as we go. And so I did it. The first couple months, it was like, man, Danny was his name. I was like, I just got to pay Danny. Like, how the hell am I going to pay Danny? Like, I need one person to come in so I can pay Danny.
Yep.
And so I did it. I never missed a payment, but it was totally invaluable having a coach. And I have a different coach now, but for 4 years, like, we've had some sort of business coach to help along. And
And how have you liked that? Because I know a lot of people I talk with that start a business, they just wing it. And it's just like, then they talk to other people that do, like other PTs in your case, and be like, how are you doing invoicing, or how are you doing keeping churn down, like all the stuff? Like, how did that help you?
Oh, I mean, it was so invaluable. Like there's so much. I mean, they don't teach you any of that in school. So there's so much I didn't know. Like I knew by that point, by the time I started a business, I had been practicing SPT for 5 years. I was residency trained by that point. I had become board certified. So like as a PT, like I knew what I was doing. So I wasn't so worried about that, but it was like, I don't know how to invoice someone. Like what system should I use? Like, how do I schedule someone? What do I do here? And so I had no idea. And so it was so helpful. And then, I started, I got out of the Navy September 2019. And so kind of used that like September, October timeframe of when I truly started the business. And then, as we all know, March 2020, COVID
Wonderful
hits.
time of the year.
Which it was so funny. Funny enough, I remember going home like the first week of March. I had finally gained some traction. I was getting some patients, and I remember going home, and I'm like, I had an awesome week, like busiest week I'd ever had at that point. And I remember telling my wife, like, this is it. Like, hold on, the rocket's taking off. And, and then COVID hits and it shut down.
The governor's like, you're not legally allowed to go
you're
work.
Not actually doing that. So yeah, everyone always asks about COVID. Like, how did that affect you? Like, what happened? What'd you do? And so it's kind of funny because I worked out of a gym at that point, just leased space from a person, literally the corner of a gym. And she had to shut down the gym, but I was considered essential.
Wow!
I got to work.
Sure.
And she told me, she's like, yeah, you're like legally you can work. I can't. Like, gym's yours. Like, I had free reign of this place, and I don't know the square footage on it. It's a pretty decent sized gym, though.
Yeah, I've been there before. Yeah, it's nice size,
especially for one person. And so, I got to keep building my business. And everything we did was one-on-one anyways, so it was not like it didn't really change for us. Like, we had to put some masks on, and some people were more hesitant, but it was like, hey, wear a mask, stand 6 foot away. Like, some of the hands-on stuff, most people didn't care, but some people did. So it was like, well, if you don't want to do that, like, we'll figure something out, but like, we can stand across the gym and I can tell you what to do from here. And so we just made it work.
And was that your first location you ever had, or what was your first place was in the gym, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so it's got a different name now. It was Infinity Training Center was the gym, and I think it's Full Strength Fitness or something like that now. 24-hour gym. I was in there for a year prior to moving into CrossFit 8035 West. And we were there 2.5 years. Yep. So
that's when I met you, I believe, or knew of you. Was like when you were in that location.
Yep. And so yeah, we just we were there 2.5 years, and then just recently, this past May, got our own space to make our own. So
how many square feet in this new spot?
Just shy of 2,000.
Oh, nice.
So
very cool.
Yeah.
And I was gonna say too, what's the origin behind the name Kaizen? I wanted to make sure we cover that.
Yeah, that's a good question. So everyone always thinks it's my last name. It's not. I have patients come in all the time, and they're like, I tried to find you on Facebook. And I'm like, well, that's not my name.
Mr. Kaizen, how you doing? Yeah. You're like, that's
yeah, because they're always like, oh, that's your last name. I either get that, or they're like, oh, this is like a franchise, right? And I'm like, no, I made it. And they're like, yeah, but like from a franchise. And I'm like, no, like I created this from scratch. Like, I had someone make my logo. Like, I don't have those graphic artist skills.
Sure.
But I guess that's a compliment, right?
Sure.
So yeah, Kaizen is the Japanese word for continuous process improvement. Or I think if you literally translate it, it's change good. And so I first came to know about Kaizen because of the hospital I worked at in Okinawa. Each department had a Kaizen board. And so the idea was like anyone in that department could go up to the board and like, oh, you got the good idea fairy comes along. Like, you got a good idea, write it up on the board. And then we had like I think it was 4 or 5 steps, like a stepwise process that we'd work through and like either see the thing all the way to the end to where we implement it, or like kick it back or axe it completely or whatnot. And then once I started looking into it a little bit more, it's actually kind of fascinating. So Toyota uses Kaizen for their production, and it's how Toyota has become like one of the like biggest and most efficient automobile manufacturers in the world. And so they like Japanese work culture is like a totally crazy thing too. So if you don't know about that, like you should look into it. But they just work people to death.
Mm-hmm. We think America's bad. But
Yeah,
go to Japan.
Japan's awesome, but work culture is not great. So they actually, I believe this is still true today. You can fact check me, but I watched it on a YouTube video once. But each Toyota employee has to come up with 7 Kaizens a day on like how they can make their job easier and more efficient. And so I kind of looked at it and I was like, well, like no matter where we're at in our health and wellness journey, like there's always room for more. Like even like elite level athletes are always looking for more. There's always something we can improve upon. And so that's kind of how I looked at it. I was like, there's always room for something. And so I kind of, I remember sitting around with my wife trying to come up with a name for this business and like Kaizen Health and Wellness. And so at the time, I was like, I didn't want to be associated with physical therapy. Like I didn't want people to say like, I didn't want them to look at it and they're like, oh, you're a physical therapist. Like I wanted it to be kind of ambiguous to where people are like, what is that? Like, what do you do? And I still have people come in, they're like, what are you? Like, are you a chiropractor? Like, because truth be told, like people don't care what I am. Mm-hmm. They just want their problem solved.
Isn't that the truest thing ever, though?
So it's like they don't care that I'm a physical therapist or a chiropractor. Like they don't care at all. They just want their problem fixed and they don't want to be in pain. Sure. And so at the time, I wanted to be separated from the physical therapy field. I didn't want to have that stigma associated with it. And then I was like, well, what if I want to add like a chiropractor or a massage therapist or if I add some other service, like kind of make it a little bit all encompassing. And so that's how it came about. Like I mentioned earlier, like I'd probably change it to a different name if I had to pick it now. But I mean, I like Kaizen. I think it'd be Kaizen Performance or Performance Therapy or something, something like that. Sure. Or maybe just Kaizen. I don't know.
Well, it's a cool tie-in to like your past in Japan because that's something that's unique. I mean, we're in BFE, Iowa. It's like, okay, there's not a lot of like difference or culture or anything like that. So I think that's a unique tie-in that would do it. Have you ever had anybody from, the East that comes in that like knows what the word means or they like understand that piece of it?
So typically, you can get in the business world, you can get Kaizen certified now. So there's a Kaizen corporation, and it's all about like process improvement.
Have you gotten like trademark, like cease and desist? Like you can't use this name.
Not yet. Hopefully, knock on wood.
Sure. We'll make sure this podcast doesn't go viral.
Cut it out.
Just blur your shirt out the whole time.
Right. So people, it goes into like the Lean Six Sigma stuff. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
Yep.
Yeah, so like people in the business world, like they'll come in, they're like, "Oh, Kaizen!" Like I know. Someone messaged me on Instagram the other day. She must have been doing like a project for school or something. And she like highlighted like Kaizen and the definition. She sent it to me. She's like, I knew this from somewhere. And I'm like, yeah.
It's like Kanban or any of the other like all the process improvement stuff.
Yep.
I mean,
we had that in the Navy too.
Yeah, it takes me back to like college, learning all the management 101 stuff in business school. So
exactly. Yep. So.
That's very cool.
Yeah, I mean, every once in a while, usually it's the business people that come in. We do have one patient from Taiwan, and she's also in the business world too, but she was familiar with it. But usually people come in, and they're like, Kaizen, like, what's that? Like, what? That's your last name, right? I'm like, no.
Is this a bar and grill, like Cajun food? You guys got some Louisiana good eats down here?
Yep. So we kind of try and tie that in with our new space. I just posted this morning, but we just got a gong yesterday, and I'm super stoked about it.
Is it big?
It's 16 inches.
Okay.
16 inches. It's got a metal Torii gate around it. It's like 29 inches wide total. And our thought with that is, like sometimes you'll see in therapy clinics, like they'll have a bell or something. Like in the Navy, we had a bell that people could ring. Like if they graduated from PT or they hit some like big goal or a PR or something, they got to ring it. And so, or I've seen people use like boards where they'll like write what they achieved or something on there. But I was like, no, I want a gong.
Okay.
And I think my wife and staff are just like, you're crazy, like whatever. And I was like, no, I really want a gong. And so we did it. The other day we just like, we're like, whatever, we're going to buy this thing. And so I did. I got it in the mail. It came from Lincoln, Nebraska, of all places. Like being from Nebraska, I'm like, wait a minute. Like, I don't know why, but
I mean, everything's made in China. You think that would also be made?
So I bought it. Yeah, I bought it off of Amazon, and it came from Lincoln. I'm like, that's kind of weird, but it's pretty sweet. I'm pretty excited about it.
That's awesome.
So yeah, we've got that. I've got a little Japanese garden. It's in the mail. Should be here. I think it's coming today, actually.
Sure.
So that's gonna be on our front desk where we have a little like mini garden up there.
Sure.
So
tell me a little bit. I mean, you were in a gym, then in another gym. It sounded like it was just you at that time. What changed to get you to the point where you needed your own space, and then that you had more than just you working on people? What was kind of that adjustment like?
So up until last September, it was just me and my wife, and we were getting busier and busier, and then middle of last year, just kind of plateaued, and I started to like feel that burnout again. Felt like I had a different business coach than what I have now, and I had like 3 or 4 months that were just plateaued. Like I wasn't doing worse, but I definitely wasn't doing any better. And it was just like I'd ask him like what do I need to do, and I'd try harder. And I was like, after a couple months of trying harder, I was like, I'm just spinning my wheels. Like I can't try any more harder. Like I'm just going to get burnt out again, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole because I've been there before and it wasn't great.
Yeah.
And so
a lot harder to like just get rid of a business that you've built for years than switching jobs or doing something different.
Yeah. And I'm stubborn. And I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm not going back to that world. And so it's like, we're going to figure this out. So we switched business coaches. And I think we had kind of kicked around the idea of taking insurance for a while. And I'm stubborn again. I didn't want to do it. I was like, no, I'm going to stick it to the man. I'm not going to bend to them. I'm going to take cash and that's it. Like I'm worth it. Which I think I am. But it turns out there's a lot of insurance in Des Moines. And someone told me recently, like Des Moines is like the number 2 insurance capital of the U.S.
Like Columbus is number 1, I think.
Yeah, something like that. So yeah, once they said that and I started looking into it, I'm like, oh, you're right. There is a lot of insurance. And I mean, the big thing is like Wellmark is downtown. And there's so many companies around here that have Wellmark or Blue Cross. And it was so frustrating because I'd get people that come in and they'd be like, I really want to work with you, but I've got a $10 copay. And it's like, I'm sitting there like, yeah, I don't blame you. Like, you mean $10 and everything's covered? Like, yeah, it's kind of hard. Like, why would you want to drop $2,000 on 10 visits for me when you can pay $10? I'm like, all right.
Sure.
And so after, I think it was last summer because it was that plateau period for us, and the economy was kind of shaky, and it was like, I think people were kind of nervous, like, is it going to tank? Is it like, what are we going to do here? Gas was going up, food prices were going up, and we kind of really felt like you could kind of feel people were kind of pulling back and a little bit more hesitant to spend. And so after a few months of just like spinning my wheels, I was like, all right, like something's got to change, and like, I don't know what it is, but I guess we're going to take insurance. Like, let's try that. And so that's really how we got kind of into that insurance world. There's so, like I said, there's so many big companies and city employees that they all have Blue Cross here. There's some bigger ones too that have United or a different plan that we don't take. But we've got ways we can work with those people too.
Sure. Yeah, so, and I will say, being on the other side, because now being my own owner, I have to go and get my own in the marketplace.
Yeah.
And it's just like, for whatever reason, if you're an individual going to the marketplace, it's always like impossible to get good coverage.
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah.
Like for my wife and I and our son, it's like $800 a month premium, and it doesn't cover anything. It's like, I'm like, the whole system is just so backwards, because it's like, unless you work for, like you said, for a large company, they can negotiate with those companies to get a really good rate for their employees. It's like,
exactly.
There's so many people that have to go out and get their own stuff.
There's so many things about it that I don't agree with. Like, my philosophy too is like people will say, like, in the physical therapy world, people will say like, oh, it's insurance, it's bad. And like, I don't think they're like the good guys. Like, I don't necessarily think they're like helping us out, but when you really look at the like PT model, it's the big corporate PT offices that are driving that, because reimbursements tends to go down with insurance. And so these bigger companies will just compensate by seeing more people. And so they just, we call them PT mills in the therapy world. So they're just known for like churn and burn and just a revolving door of patients. And so what they end up doing is like they'll hire a new grad for a low rate, and they just churn and burn for a couple of years until they're completely burnt out and they quit, and then they kind of
do the people in Japan own these companies?
I know, right? Maybe somebody needs to look into this.
Yeah, they're like, this is a Ponzi scheme going on,
right? So it's not a great model, but like people get burned out and they're like, oh, it's because of insurance because the reimbursement's going down. It's like, well, like there's some truth to that, but like if you looked at your employer, like you don't have to schedule people that way. You don't have to double book or triple book. Sometimes people are seeing 4 people at a time. Like that's ridiculous.
Sure.
And so,
because how many staff do you have now then?
So in September, when we went, it was about the same time we went in network with Blue Cross. We hired our first PT and started him part-time. He very quickly actually worked up to full-time. And then just about a month ago or so, we hired another therapist full-time. So we've got 3 PTs right now. And his schedule, he's 3 days a week right now, and it's about full.
Sure.
So we're gonna open up his schedule, so he'll be full-time here, and then just continue to grow. And
sure. So there's the 3 PTs include yourself.
Yep.
And then your wife still helps with admin
helps
work.
out. Yep. And then we've got some part-time admin, remote admin that helps as well.
Sure. What's been the most challenging thing about like working with your wife full time? Because it's obviously it sounded like she was kind of excited to get in.
Yeah.
And all the other stuff going on. What's been kind of the biggest challenge for you in trying to separate work from home with that stuff?
Honestly, I know a lot of people say it's like really hard, and people say that about marriage too, and we've never really felt that. So I think being in business with your spouse for us has been, I don't know if I want to say easy, but it hasn't been too bad.
Sure.
I think part of that though is the things that she's really good at and enjoys are the things that I'm not good at and I don't enjoy.
That's
and so
perfect.
I don't want to do them anyways. And so like numbers wise, like I want like big picture overview, like send me the report, like show me the graph. Like I want to look at that. I don't want to crunch numbers.
I want the picture.
Yeah, I want the picture. Like show me that. She loves crunching numbers. So I'm like, perfect, take it.
Yeah.
Like do that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, things like that. Like, so I think that's been good. It's more, I think one of the biggest challenges, not from just working with your spouse, but just going from like owning your own business is like the focus for so long was like, well, hey, like, is this thing even going to work? Like, can I make this? Is this a viable business? So it's like, I just got to get people in the door. And now I'm seeing it's like, hey, if I want to grow, like I can't do it myself. So I've got to trust other people to do it. But now, like mentally, like inside my brain, I'm thinking more of like, okay, like this is obviously a viable model. It's working. But now I can't just be a therapist and owner. Like I've got to be a leader as well and make this an enjoyable job for my staff and keep them happy as well. So I don't know. It's like things I wrestle with in my head. And I had a lot of different leadership classes and courses in the Navy and whatnot, but it's just different when like I didn't have to worry about money then because we were getting a steady paycheck. But now it's like, oh, this money is like their paycheck is based off of our performance and me and like what I do and what we do as a team. And so it's just like wrapping your head around like transitioning from just like pure business owner and therapist to like leader and someone that people want to work for.
Sure. So. Well, like you said, the responsibility, it's not only for yourself and for your family, but also all your other employees. Like, oh,
my
crap.
employees have kids. Like, they got to feed their kids too. It's like, oh, man.
It's like the stakes are higher, but also I think it's more rewarding because everybody's like on the same boat together. They're all like pushing together.
Yeah. And I've told my therapist this too. Like, I've kind of got to the point where like I went from like, I don't want to own a business or it was never on my mind to like, I really like that. And I actually kind of want to do that more than like being a therapist. And so like that's eventually want to grow to like enough therapists where I can kind of step back and just focus on business development. But I get a lot of satisfaction too from like seeing them be successful, like with their clients. Like I don't necessarily, like I still treat patients, but I know one day I want to kind of get out of that. But I get more excited seeing them be successful with them than I do like with myself with patients. So
sure.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like, I mean, you were nearing that burnout phase and it sounds like you pivoted at the perfect time to get to that next stage in the business where you can keep it interesting, keep like you said, your thresholds slightly go further. So then you're always like chasing something. Because I always think like life would be so boring if everything was on easy mode. And it just, you have to kind of have those challenges are what keeps it interesting and keeps you showing up every day, right?
Right.
Yeah, because I think it's interesting too, because the scaling model is different. Because some people I'll talk to, they solely started the business because they are an operator and they love, like, I'm just in business for myself so I can like see patients all day and that's all I want to do. Other people, it's like they get more in the weeds and they're like, oh, it's like kind of this next level of it is like growing the business or managing people and all that stuff too. Because I think like for my business, I'm to the point now where I'm looking at doing like part-time, full-time type person.
Sure.
My CPA told me though, he's like, you need to just like hold out as long as you can because then you have to like look into benefits and you have to pay their taxes, like all the stuff. So he's like, just hold out as long as you can. So I've like
payroll just went out yesterday. I feel that.
Right. And you're like scrambling like crap. We need to get more patients to cover payroll or get rent covered or whatnot. So it's like, I definitely think like steady growth is the way to go though. Cause if you try and bite off too much that you can't chew.
Honestly. So as hard as like those first couple years were and where, I don't know if struggle is the right word, but like it was challenging. I really think that set us up like perfectly because we had all the systems and processes like in place and like knew how to do it. Like if we would have started out of the gate just like super fast, like we would have sank.
Sure.
And so I wouldn't say it's like perfect. Like we're still trying to like iron out all those details and like refine things. I guess that's Kaizen, like always improving everything as we go. But
name drop. Name drop.
Right. This isn't an ad, but if it were.
Our new address is this.
Yeah. So, I mean, definitely, I think those struggles were helpful and they really helped kind of mold us who we are today and have taught us a lot of things over the years. So.
Sure. Kind of going back, when you were first starting the business, what was your like first, how did you get clients in the beginning? Did you have like connections here in town, friends and family, or did you kind of hit the streets? Like what did you do to get your first like handful of clients?
Yeah. I love this question because it always, people always act surprised when I tell them this. I bootstrapped this entire company. I didn't take out a business loan. I had enough school loans. I still have school loans. Like I had enough loans that I'm like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to go into more debt, especially for something like, I don't know if this is going to work. And so I had no marketing budget at all. So what we did is, I mean, we were in a gym, so like they had classes and whatnot. And the owner of that gym was awesome about sending people or having people at least come over and talk to me if they were having issues. But aside from that, like we just, like I didn't know anyone. I guess that's the other piece. Like I was here for 3 years, but I was in school and I was in the library all the time studying. Like my friends were in school with me. Left for 5 years, came back. Des Moines in that 5 years is like a completely different place. But I didn't know anyone. Like I never networked or anything. And so we just started like cold DMing people on Instagram. Like, hey, like you want to meet up? Like what you do is interesting. Like let's get coffee and chat. Like things like that. So we set up a ton of one-on-one meetings with people. And then once we got to know people, started doing workshops in gyms where we'd go into a gym and teach them some, 5 different mobility exercises over an hour and just trying to get our name out there and get to know people and get people to know like who we are. And we'd slowly start getting, we get a couple patients from those and we didn't like there for a while. It was like every weekend we were doing something. And sometimes it was like we'd do a Thursday night and a Saturday morning and, we were doing multiple a week. And so it's really, really kept doing, building those local relationships with people until I had a little bit of a budget. And then it's like, what's a Facebook ad? Like, let's get into that.
Right.
Like, how do I do that? And
right.
So that's where my business coach came in a little bit too, especially the group we've got now. It's 2 guys that own it, but they're good with the Facebook ads. And it was just like, it's all organic. Like I didn't have money to spend. I just had to meet people. And
sure. Well, it sounds like you really tapped into that gym world. I mean, just CrossFit's a great place to go. Everybody's getting hurt all the time.
That's what everyone always says. And, the CrossFit gym we're in, like people literally had to walk past our office to get to the gym.
Stumble past it or limp. Like, damn it, I hurt my hip again or whatever. Because I know like I started CrossFit in, I think it was 2 years ago. And I got through my whole first calendar year with no injuries. And then I had just like tweaked my back doing like some crazy deadlift workout. And I'm like, God dang it. I thought I could get through. Like we do really good mobility warm up and everything, but it's one of those things like it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Right,
so,
right. Yeah.
So yeah, it's very interesting. But I just always love asking like how people start because usually there's like these, it's like, it's not pretty. It's just, you just hit the, how much, like, were you working like just crazy hours that first year? Like, what did it look like in terms of like output to get at least that first foundation?
It was pretty busy. I was thinking about that on the way to work this morning because I had a 7:30 patient this morning and I'm going to be done at like 6:30 tonight. Minus this little like podcast here. We've got patients all day, but it was like, I was thinking about it on my drive in. I was like, man, I used to like think I was busy when I first started because I was doing things, but like, like I said, it probably helped like lay some of the foundation, but like now I'm busy like all day, like seeing patients, like making money. Like this is cool.
Like income activities, not just like I should write a blog.
I was like, I met with someone, like
they didn't pay me, but
right. And it's the crazy thing about that too is like, I guess it's probably been 2 months ago now. Like someone came in, but I met this guy the same way. I had coffee with him. I just messaged him and asked if he wanted coffee.
Sure.
Didn't pay out until a year later, but I went to a networking group one time and got no clients from them. And we like the 3 free ones that I could before I had to become a member. I never became a member. I think COVID hit. And then one of the members there 2 years later reaches out like, I need to come in and see you. Like, so you just never know like how those things are going to pay off. Like people know people and people talk and they don't always need physical therapy, but when they do, like that's our goal is to be like, we want them to think like, oh, I'm hurt. I need to go see Kaizen. Like, I need to go see those guys there.
Absolutely. No, I think it's interesting too. People ask me all the time, like, because I'll be like, oh yeah, I've been full-time for like 3 years. And like, oh my gosh, like how are you? Like you eating ramen and like peanut butter sandwiches? I'm like, no, it's like, I've been doing, but like you said, you lay the groundwork, you make those connections the first 4 or 5 years, whatever. Right. And then when you know enough people and they're like, oh, I need whatever service you offer. It's like, you're the first person. And I think that really helps just like you said, get the name out there, but then you have to like perform. Like you got like, they come in, their back hurts and then they leave. And if it still hurts, they're not going to tell it. Like you got to, create your own virality in the marketing world. If you just do good work, I think that's the big part too. Yeah.
Someone asked me recently, like what do you contribute to your like recent success? Like, because we've been growing steadily, but we've been very busy lately, which is awesome.
Well, I mean, you just went from like sole provider to like three PTs
in our own standalone
in a new building. Like people are probably asking questions.
We were busy yesterday too, and actually we had all 3 providers. We full schedule all day. It was awesome. We saw more people. This is a random fact. Like we saw more people in one day between all of us than when I hired Josh. We saw more people yesterday in one day than we saw that entire week when I first hired him. So if that kind of puts things into perspective. Sure. But it was just, so this person messaged me and they're like, what do you contribute to your recent success? And I just kind of laughed at it. I was like, it's not like an overnight success. Like there's so much groundwork you have to put in behind the scenes. So like, 3 years ago, like I was working long hours, but maybe I wasn't getting checks or, from those activities, but like they pay off. You just got to do the work and be consistent with it over time. And that's the other thing is just consistency. You just got to keep, you just never know. Like even with social media, you put a post out there and it could do nothing. And then 3 months later, someone comes in like, oh, I saw this post and I thought you could help me with that.
Sure.
It's like, you just never know.
Well, and I think it's interesting. Like there's so many people out in the world, especially in America, that grind that stump for someone else. And it's like a lot of people, they could get fired, the company could go under, like, all that effort you put in wouldn't necessarily like pay off or show. Where I feel like if you're doing it for your own business, like it will result in like you're putting the work in, but it's like it laser focus in the right place to to get the diamond type thing. Where if you're just kind of like swinging that axe every day, it's like I feel like that's when you can get really burnt out if you're not there's no direct benefit or there's not like a pie in the sky of like what the growth plan is and everything.
Right.
Because kind of tying it all together here, what is like, I mean, you mentioned earlier, but what's the big picture vision for you like in the next 5 years of kind of, I mean, you're in this new space, you got some more providers. What's kind of that vision look like for you as you grow the business?
So it's funny. We just kind of met last week, the week before about this. Because since September, like things have changed so quickly. And we're just growing and it's awesome. But it was like, oh crap, like I had wanted to make sure this was viable, but like, yeah, it turns out like it's working. So it's like, my big plan was always for like 3 years. It was like, I just want to get my own space. And now it's like, we moved into the space, and side note, like this space was open last year, and we had looked at another space and walked by this, and I was like, that space is too big. I can't afford it. Like it's just me, no way. And now we move into this space, and now we've got 3 providers. The first day we had 3 of us there seeing patients at the same time. I was like, oh crap, we don't have enough room. Like both the other therapists went back. We have got 2 offices, private offices. They took their patients back there, and then I was standing out in the gym with mine. And she's like, I want to do some dry needling first. And I was like looking around, I'm like,
where?
Crap. So luckily we had a portable table, and we've got a little nook. Like we made it work, and it was fine. But it was like, oh shit, we don't have enough space. Like, we just moved into this space, and I got a 5-year lease. Like, what do we do?
And you just put money into like renovations.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh crap.
Sure.
So yeah, then we met a couple weeks ago, and it was like, all right, we need to really like figure this out, because like going back to like me being a leader, like I need to have a vision to like tell you guys like, hey, this is what we're working towards, and like this is what, obviously we're seeing patients, we want to be the best at that. But like there's a bigger picture too, and like what do we want to do, and how do we want to do that? And so looking at like 5-10-year plan, it's I think for us it's just going to be kind of keep expanding and open another location. I don't know if this is in my mind right now. This is something to probably keep in Iowa. I kind of want to expand throughout the metro. Within, my thought is like within the next 5 years, maybe we'll have 3 locations. Within the next 10 years, maybe we'll have 5, but we'll have them throughout Iowa. And so I think, it's always funny. Things change so fast, and like it could change. We think next year, this time could be like completely different. But that's kind of our thought now is like, within the next 5 years, like let's open 3 total locations throughout the metro. And then we're going to start looking at expanding throughout Iowa. So,
sure.
Yeah.
No, I love that. I think it just having that big picture vision always helps to kind of steer the ship. And then it's, you're aiming towards something. Like you said, so you're not just like you said, swinging the axe every day and not like really thinking like, oh, there's something bigger, as it goes.
Yeah, big picture. And we, like I said, we want to be the best at what we're doing. And we've talked about adding some other services, small group training or some things like that. And I thought about it after we met one day and we're talking about that, and I always kind of had that on the back burner. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do it. But when we get in our own space, we're going to do it. And then we got in our own space, and I was like, you know what? Like, I don't think that's right for us, at least not right now. I was like, I want to be like so damn good. Like, what is it? I think it's Alex Ramosi that talks about like being so undeniably good at something that like people can't deny, like,
right.
So like when people, like you said, when people get hurt, like they think Kaizen. Like I want them to think Kaizen first and come to us.
Right. Not the hospital, but like you, like I can fix your problem.
Right. Like we can fix your problem before that. And so that's kind of sat down with the therapist, and like, that's what I think I think group training, these other projects, like those are great, but like at our core, like performance physical therapy is what we do. Like, let's get so damn good at that. I think we're pretty good now, but I think we can get better, and we can Kaizen this thing out, and like, let's get so undeniably good at that before we start looking at, because I don't like shiny object syndrome. Like people get so, that the next big thing and next device we can get. It's like, let's just go back to our roots and do it as good as we can.
Sure. Well, I think using that as kind of a steering point helps too, because then you can measure success over time and not, I mean, if you'd have grabbed that space you're in now 3 years ago, you'd been like, I'm just trying to like make rent every day. You wouldn't even like,
no way.
You're so like against the wall every month where it's like, oh my gosh, I think that's a good problem to have is like, okay, now we've outgrown the space. We're totally booked. We can start banking up money and then look for the next move. I think that's a really smart way to go about it too.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
That's cool, man.
Absolutely.
Well, I was going to say we're kind of coming up on time here. I want to be mindful of your time.
Sure.
For people that are wanting to learn more about you, the business, I know you also have a podcast, so this is your time. Like any stuff you're doing, feel free to like let us know what you're up to.
Sure. So we'll start with the podcast. The podcast is the Fit Moines podcast. We interview coaches and clinicians throughout the metro. We think we've done some throughout the state, but mostly the metro here. I need to get back on that. To be honest, we've been so busy and focused on other things that it's kind of got put on the back burner. But I'm always open. So if someone's listening and they're interested and they want to be on it, let's get it going.
Sure. Have you interviewed Chris Reel from Elite Health and Performance?
No, we haven't.
I had him in yesterday for my pod. I'll have to give you
I thought
his
he did.
info.
I saw he shared a little thing. I thought he
kind of conveniently looks just like this room.
Like weird.
Yeah. So
he'd be a good one. Yeah, he'd be a good one to have on.
Yeah, because he was just telling me, he's like, I've always wanted to start a podcast and call it The Real Talk because it's his last name's Reil.
I like it. That's a good play.
So yeah, he might want to be on the show because this is his first pod now. He's like, oh, this is fun.
Oh yeah, and it's so easy. Like my setup's way smaller than this. Like I've got like a Yeti mic and my laptop, and that's it.
Sure.
And I think I started with headphones, and it worked just fine.
Sure.
Headphones and Zoom. Like it was fine. It's way easier than people think. Like just do it.
Absolutely.
And social media, we're on pretty much everything at Kaizen DSM is our handles across the board. Websites, kaizendsm.com. And phone number 515-207-2450. We are located, so our new space is right by the Target in Urbandale. 11119 Plum Drive.
It's right next to the Quiznos because that's how I knew where you were. I was walking by. I'm like, holy cow, that's right where the Kaizen is.
5 Barrel Bagels is their new location is on the other end of that.
Okay.
So that's the other. I'll say Target and people are like 5 Barrels. I'm like, yes, like you know exactly where.
Right.
So
maybe the women are like Stacy's Bridal. Like
I get that too. They're like, where is it? And like right behind Stacy's Bridal, kind of like tucked down in there, but right in the middle of that strip mall. So it's a really good location, right off the interstate. Pretty easy access from really anywhere in the metro.
Sure.
Sure.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Everybody go check them out. Thanks again so much for being on the show. And if you have any other, like I said, other people you want to interview on your pod, let me know. I know a lot of people. So if I can send people your way, I will for sure.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much everybody for watching. You can watch all past episodes if you go to the YouTube channel or subscribe on any podcast platforms. Once again, my name is Ryan Snaadt. It rhymes with odd, and you're listening to the Rhymes with Odd podcast. See ya.